G'day fellas and welcome to another Beyond All Reason guide. Today we're going to be taking a look at some gameplay that I had recently in the air position. You can see I pinged out to my allies, let them know that I'm playing air. This is, in my opinion, the most impactful position of the game. Now, it depends on who you might ask. Some people will say, well, no, Drongo, this front position is the most impactful because you get all this metal and you can scale because you've got this nice little safe corner on the edge of the map. And some people might say, well, actually, the eco position's the best because you can be flexible with how many units you provide to your allies or if you provide units at all. And it gives you a lot of power in that. But I argue that it's actually the air that has the most control in a game because if you're better than the enemy air player and you've got a more efficient build order or you just simply outplay them, it allows you to control the game, to win the game very early. And that's exactly what you're going to see in this video. Spoiler alert, it is happening. We've gone for our standard opening here. We're right on board. I'll jump into my perspective so we get a bit more of an idea of what I can see. We open up with our standard opening. 3 mexes, 2 solar collectors. Make sure we always give about 25% to that solar collector between the second and third mex, just to min-max a little bit. And then we start off with our bot lab. And I know it might seem crazy going for a bot lab when we're doing air, but I promise you, there is a method to the madness. Now, we've got a Lazarus that's going to be coming out, or a grave robber in this case, because we're playing as the core, and there's a very specific reason why we do it. If you haven't already seen the air guide that I did, then make sure you go check it out. There's a lot of info in there that might help you understand the little tidbits that are going to be happening throughout this game. In addition to that, if you're enjoying the bar content, please, I encourage you, I remind you, leave a like on the video. A lot of people just come in, watch the video, they enjoy it, but they forget to leave a like. So if you do like the video, make sure you leave a like. But let's get back to it. So the first constructor going to come out, going to be looking to place down a nano. We see right here. This is something that I picked up from Malady. Our commander's going to come over and help out. Now, if we run out of energy, if we stall on the energy, we're just going to throw down a wind turbine in the meantime. But we've got pretty decent energy income at the moment. The wind is up at 15.8, and our first con just goes out and adds in a mex and a whole bunch of wind turbines. Second con, same thing for them. It's always just rinsing and repeating, and you can see early on we're struggling. There are some rovers on the back line, some rascals rather, on the back line, and just being really annoying over towards this top side. You can see that it's from the enemy blue player as well, which is always the case. It's the best player on the enemy team that's always going to be trying to carry, and you can see early on in this game, they've already come out here and they're trying to do damage towards their competition on the back line. So we've gotten out a grunt just in response, just to make sure that if there's any ticks that come our way, we're going to be able to deal with it. And our second construction bot is now out. Same story with him. Check this out. We've gone mex into 8 wind turbines, and we're making sure that we're always building our wind turbines within the radius of our construction turret. Meanwhile, behind enemy lines, we do see that the enemy is struggling a little bit at the moment. You can see that the construction aircraft actually gets spotted out here, and this is a little bit of an issue because it kind of tells you, hey, the enemy is going air from the beginning, and this is a massive advantage, right? If I see that my enemy has opened air like this, unfortunately for Toxic Waste, which it sounds like Waste. I'm trying to think the accent that he's got right there. It's an accent of some sort, where they pronounce the W as a V. Maybe like Middle Eastern, like Iranian, like Toxic Waste. Maybe that's it. But anyway, for anybody wondering, I speak Farsi, which is why I can make that comment. But let's talk a little bit about what's happening back here. So we've got a pretty big economy, right? Compare that to our enemy who opened with air. They're paying a lot more for the construction units than we are, a lot more energy at least. And that gives us the flexibility in the early game to do what we've done, in that we've got a lot of expansion happening with our energy. And this is really key. It's important that when we're playing air, we're expanding our energy and our build power, and we're scaling them together. Metal's the easy part, right? Because you just build if you're playing the backline like we are at the moment on glitters, it's very easy. I take my 6 mexes and I forget about it. If I'm playing on straights, I take my 4 mexes and I forget about it. I mean, to an extent, you can think about the islands on straights, but at the moment, that's not going to be the main focus. So we've started making shurikens, and the reason why is it is our job, it's our obligation to help our allies here. Now, the lowest player on our team, R007, is struggling a little bit here. You can see that, unfortunately, things aren't going well for him. He has a total metal income, I would suspect, of 5. Not the best. So, hopefully, we're going to be able to get him back online here, and we're going to send over a couple of shurikens just to help him out, you can see. So, if there's any more raids that come through, we're going to be able to deal with that. Normally, you're not able to help out with those super early ones with air because we don't open with air directly. But now we begin to add in some shurikens, and we'll be on the watch. We'll be making sure that we keep a keen eye. If there's any units that come past or if there's any pings that go out, we'll make sure that we try and keep our tabs on that. But let's check in over back towards the main base. The commander is focusing on getting up all of these energy converters. Now, the normal ratio that we like to use is 5-to-1, so we can have a look how many we've got at the moment. Let's have a look and see. So we're sitting on 37 wind turbines and 7 energy converters. So 7 times 5, you're looking at about 35 wind turbines, and we're sitting on that 37. So it's pretty much on point right there with that ratio. So this is a good number to have. Keep in mind, they're not always going to be on, depending on whether the wind is good or whether the wind is bad. Do not forget to build your energy storage. It's imperative when you're going for air. You've got to get that energy storage down, because the emphasis on wind here is quite important, just because it allows you to really scale that build power or that energy without investing too heavily in solar, because solar is going to cost you a lot of metal. You can see right now that we're reclaiming that solar, getting rid of it, and we've started off just by going into fighters. This is key, because we know that the enemy is going for air. We know that they've got at least some sort of air out. We saw that construction aircraft earlier. The game says, enemy aircraft detected. So you know, hey, okay, air is on the field, which means that we've got to get those fighters out. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Start working towards fighters. And 10 fighters is a reasonable number just to start off with. It's important to remember that they double as offensive units and defensive units. If you get bombed, you can react with your fighters. Or by the same token, if you go for a bombing run, you can clear out the enemy fighters with yours. So it works in 2 ways. So we've noticed, or at least I've noticed, that my ally is not taking all of his metal extractors. So I said, you know what? If you're not going to take him, I'll take him, because otherwise they're just going to sit there for the rest of the game, and that's metal that we're just giving up. So I'll take that. Meanwhile, our expansion continues. We are looking to expand our energy together with our build power. There's no general rule for this. You just got to go by the vibe, by the feel of it. And for me, you know, I'm stacking up a little bit of metal here, and I'm saying, okay, well, that metal could be going into more build power and then subsequently can be reinvested into my units. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Meanwhile, down towards the front, commander is still just making these metal extractors. And you can see we're having a bit of a tough time in this game. Our enemy is starting to fall over through caves. We've got our weakest player who's going to be playing on that front line in caves, and he's up against a pretty decent player on the enemy team, up against Zero Renegade. This guy's currently true skill rating 22, so he's got 21 rating on him. That's pretty impactful, and he's able to come past that front line, push past, and by the same token, we've also got Ego, who is now pushed up as well. He's taken his own 3.2 mechs, or at least should be taking his own 3.2 mechs, and has denied it from his enemy. So he's got himself a nice little position as well there. So it's really up to us at this point to try and find a way to win this game. And that's what we're looking for. Remember, when it comes down to you, if you want to climb, if you want to get better, well, I wouldn't say get better, but if you want to improve your rating, which is what we're doing, you need to win. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that answer. How can I find a victory here? And for me, I'm in prime position. You know, if I'm on the front line over here, think about it from the perspective of Nutcrack, okay? He's thrown down the agitator. He's starting to work on the enemy front line, but he's up against their best player as well. So I suspect he's probably not going to make a lot of headway over here. Best case scenario, maybe he gets a little bit of a boom going on behind over on this side with the stall out, and he's able to outboom his enemy. From the eco position, it's going to take a while before he's online back here. You can see that we've still got advanced solars coming up. We're at the 8-minute mark. Do we even have... I don't even think we've got the advanced labs online yet. So maybe Soup Dog could look at a couple of teching guides, get himself up to speed with exactly what the expectation is in that position. But to be fair, he does have units out on the front. So I got to give him respect for that. But now, we've really begun to build up those unit numbers now, the fighters. We're up to 15 Valiants. And this is key, because these Valiants we're going to be using as a countermeasure for our bombing run. Because I've determined right now, I've sent out a whole bunch of Finks or Blinks onto the minimap, onto the map, and I've scouted out the enemy. I've said, okay, let me see exactly what they've got. And depending on the response I get from the enemy air player, depends on whether I go for a bombing run or not. And I see that there's really not much. You know, he had a little bit of a fighter wall up, but I said, I can deal with that. That's easy. So I said, all right, there is an option right now if I want to go for a victory condition. And that is a bombing run. So it's going to be a tier 1 bombing run. This comes in relatively early. You can see we've started making bombers at about the 9-minute mark. So judging by, if we were to go off the last video that we posted about air, you would have seen Malady, and Malady came in with a timing at about 8 minutes, which was absolutely perfect. Little bit of different circumstances, different maps, more metal for her or for him on that map. I always think of Malady as Milady, so I always got to call him her. But it is, different circumstances, but still decent timing here. And just once again, still scaling. We're never forgetting about scaling, always making these wind turbines. We keep making wind turbines until we've got a fusion up. Once we've got a fusion, then we can stop making wind turbines. Once we've got an APHIS up, then we can reclaim out wind turbines. So that's the best way to think about it. We keep making wind turbines, and at the moment we're up to, let's double check and see how many we're up to. We're on 107 wind turbines, so some pretty decent numbers here for that. So one of the other things that we're going to be looking at is a T2 bot from our allies, or a T2 constructor. This is really important to get, because remember that we're not going to be going into T2 ourselves until we get that T2 bot, because we don't have the metal income to support it. You can see that we are struggling with the metal at the moment. We simply don't have enough. So now that I've got those scouts out, I know exactly where all the enemy buildings are. I know where the targets are. And so I say, all right, well, there's not a lot of anti-air over on the blue side. So let's just go there. We lead with our fighters. We begin by bringing them through, and we're making sure that we issue fight commands as soon as we see the enemy fighters. So there they are. Fight command comes through, and we've got 15 fighters against 1, 15 against 1, 15 against 2. You can see the critical numbers that we've got here. We are just able to neutralize those enemy positions, and the bombing run comes in on the backside, taking out about 900 metals worth of solar collectors. Now onto the T1 lab here. I don't think we get the kill on the lab, but we still do a fair bit of damage back there. And the idea for me is that we just want to keep moving on. We don't want to kill this lab. We just keep moving on. We can always come back for it and take it out. And look, to be honest, that's probably the best choice when you find a T2 lab is to actually kill it. But I say, you know what? I'm just going to try and do as much damage as I can across the map here. Try and ruin as many people's days as I possibly can. So we head over towards the next base. We hit a couple of buildings. It's not the best run here. But we've still got our fighters following in tow. We've hit 3 people so far. That's going to be the 4th one. 5th one comes in. We're going to hit Zero Renegade here, another Australian, and try... Oh, never mind. I went the wrong way. And you can see we're getting reclaimed at the moment, but we're starting to lose a fair bit of tempo now as our bombers, as they throw down these bombs, and we get an absolutely beautiful bombing run that hits a whole bunch of wind turbines. So... overall, I would say that our bombing run was successful, but it wasn't game-ending successful. We did damage to the enemy, significant damage, but it wasn't enough to force them to resign. It wasn't enough for them to start bickering in the chat about how the air player wasn't making any air and, you know, what's going on, that sort of thing. And this is where it really comes down to having a solid build order. I know a lot of people laugh at the concept of a build order and say, you don't need that. And to be honest, look, you don't really need a build order. You just need a framework. You need an idea and some goals. So what are our goals if we go over this again? So we start off with the bot lab. We go into 3 construction bots. We reclaim the bot lab. We make sure that we build our air, and then we begin by making just some shurikens if you're under attack, or some fighters just to defend. And then you can make a decision as to whether you want to bomb. So you make a couple of scouts, get them out across that map, see if you can spot any high value targets, and maybe look to target them down. From there, you'll be expecting to receive your T2. Now, once your T2 construction comes in, you need to have made sure that you scaled your build power and scaled your energy. And then after you've got that T2 and you've started beginning work on your advanced metal extractors, normally you'd want to wait until the very end, or like getting, say, 3 to 4 of them up before you even start thinking about your advanced aircraft plant. But for me, I had a little bit of excess metal. Let's just put it that way. I may have forgot to make units. So I said, you know what? I reckon I can just afford to go T2 here. So I did it, and that's exactly where we go. So that's the general framework. And so now I'm in a really good spot because I'm T2. I've got my T2 bot out. Take a look at the enemy air player, and he's still sitting on T1. And granted, T1 fighters aren't terrible. They're pretty decent when it comes to their cost, their pound for pound fighting. But the problem is, there's not a lot going on here. We've got the advanced solar coming up, and I would just recommend, as an air player, staying away from advanced solar. It's very heavy on the metal, and that's something that we need to be investing into other avenues or other ventures. So I would say try your best just to stay on wind turbines. They are very, very solid here, and you can always just put down a single energy storage. Typically, the wind's not going to hit you that hard as an air player. You know, there are games where as a boomer or as the tech player, if you go for wind like this, it can be really detrimental, because if the wind does stall, that's it. It's all over Red Rover, because your tech is directly tied to that. But anyway, we move on, we move forward, and we can see that there's a little bit of a push coming back down here. Once again, our front line has fallen. So we try and issue a response. It's going to be a slow one. Some wasps coming out here, some very, very slow gunships. These guys are pretty decent. I do value these guys. I think they're quite good. They do a lot of damage, but I mean, realistically, there are other methods for you. I mean, I think it's you've got the dragon, which is very heavy on the metal. Take a look at the metal difference between these two: 370 versus 5,100. So opt for the wasps when you're doing these defenses and you've only got T2s. They're pretty decent in a spot like this. But now we're going to head into the Nighthawks. the stealth fighter unit for the core. The best fighter in the game, better than any seaplane, better than any arm unit, better than any T1 that you can make. It is by far just the best fighter that there is. Full stop. And now we've got ourselves a surrender over on the enemy side. Somebody has dropped out from the game because there was a push that came through. So you can see right now we've got Ganders who's done a pretty decent job with the push over here on the backside, but just kind of. It should be shut down as long as Zero is able to micro it well. We can see that there's plenty of hammers or rather maces on this top side, but a fair bit of damage has been done through this, and a resign vote does go up, but it's not over just yet. So let's make sure that we continue back towards the focus, because now that we've got the Nighthawks up, and we're pretty confident with our air superiority. Now remember, you want to keep climbing with your fighter numbers, but it's on the condition that the enemy is climbing with their fighter numbers. You just don't want to be making fighters if your enemy's not making air. That's normally why we go for like 10 fighters at the beginning, just to make sure that we've got them in case the enemy is going for air, because we don't really have much knowledge or vision about what's going on. So we've just got to have that as our basic insurance policy. But once we start getting to this point in the game, we can really just take the foot off the pedal. Once we're confident we've got that air superiority. And here you can see I'm coming through to the enemy base at the moment. So we're right on board with my perspective. And my Nighthawks are just absolutely destroying the enemy at the moment. I realize that there's no fighter wall up here. There's not a real lot of fighters at all. So I'm confident we can just go straight into bombers. And that's exactly what we do. So we start with the hailstorms now. And these guys are incredible. If you're able to get a couple of these guys together, you can finish a game very quickly. And that's what we're going to be looking to do. So we see a second player goes out. It's going to be Blue over in that corner. If we take a look at what exactly happened there, I'm not 100% sure he still had the T2 bot lab. I guess he was just upset about this push coming through the mid. And I think that's a really important part of getting better in Beyond All Reason, is you have to have a strong mental game. So look, I don't want to talk shit about somebody right now, but I will say right now, it's your obligation as the best player in the game to pull out a carry. It's not your obligation. You do not want to neglect your team. You don't want to abandon your team in a time like this. They need you to lead. You're not elected to read. You're elected to lead, and that's what you're here to do. So don't go reading what your allies are typing about how they need help. Just start doing things. That is my advice. I mean, if they do say we need help, then you got to try and help them. But anyway, I digress. So, a bit of a boom coming out at the moment for Nutcrack. You can see he's working towards that first APHIS. He's already got the fusion up, and I like the fact that he's going for multiple things at the same time here. We see going for the advanced energy converters and at the same time working towards the construction turrets. And I tell you what, going for vehicles, I don't know, I just feel vehicles are so awkward compared to bots, man. I don't know. I probably got to be I got to think a little bit more about the vehicles, but every time I play vehicles, I'm just like, why am I playing vehicles? I should just be playing bots. Bots are so much more, I don't know, they just feel like you can get them into so many more spots, but how important that actually is, I don't know. Anyway, our fusion is up. We've got all 6 of our advanced mechs up. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we've finished that first fusion, and we're going to start working on our second fusion, and as is typical, we're going to make sure that we're also focusing on our economy behind this, but at the same time, we're also making sure that we've got plenty of buildings, and we've started to really scale our build power here. We've got 20 construction turrets that are helping construct these advanced aircraft. So it's quite important that we make sure that we scale this, and you can see that I'm starting to struggle with the amount of metal that I've got, because I've gone for a sneaky little bot lab over here. And I've said, well, you know what? My ally has died over on this west side. I'm not going to bring them back to life. I'm just going to eat their bases, or at least eat all the wrecks that were in their base. And so that's what I do. I get a whole bunch of res bots out. You can see them right there. And we've been sucking up metal over here for a while. So yes, and you can even see right now in the chat, Son of Osiris saying Drongo is uncontested in air. I don't know what Mao is, but well, I know who he is. I just don't know what relevance he has right now to the game. But we're going to go for a bombing run right now, and this is a game-ending bombing run. These bad boys, I say, you know what? We're just going to bomb the front line. We'll try and break through and see if we can just give him a little bit of assistance there. But let's ride on board with our perspective. Now, I know the APHIS is here, but I don't want to hit this APHIS, because when you do hit the APHIS, there'll be a big explosion, you will lose your unit. So you want to try and damage everything else and then kill the APHIS last, is the way I look at it. So we come in, pretty big bombing run that we're going to hit. The fusion in the middle goes. All of the wind turbines going to go as well with it. And we managed to do quite a bit of damage towards that backline player. And keep in mind, this is at the 19-minute mark, right? Like, we're pretty early in this to have a game-ending bombing run. So we're just making sure that we're always splitting up our attacks. You can see that we've got them focused, and we will eventually focus down this Aphis because it's quite a big target, but we want to make sure that we clear out the back. And you can see I'm really quite careful about how I control this. I don't want all of my bombers to go over at the same time, because when it happens, they will all go down. And you can see I lost probably like 10 bombers right there. So a pretty big mistake for me, letting myself commit that many to it. But with that being said, that is tough to come back from a bombing raid like that. And you could probably say the game was pretty much over at that point anyway. But I hope this provides you a decent example of the framework that I'm setting to help you play air, because I do genuinely think this is the strongest position you can have when it comes to controlling the game. Now, that's not always the case. If you're up against someone who's also very competent on air, the amount of control you're going to have is limited, because they're going to have fighters out, they're going to be able to contest you on air, and it's going to be difficult for you to manage to find a way through with your bombers, especially if they've got good control. So that's an important consideration. So the flexibility that when it really comes to the top level, I would say at the top level, a position like Nutcracker's got is definitely the best position. But I would say towards the mid levels, until you really reach the highest level, the air position is the most impactful on the game. And now we're going to go for another run across the map here. Just try and find out all of those enemy positions. But that's going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. You can see the last players are finally leaving here. And that is essentially it. So if you've got any questions, leave them down below. If you've got any feedback, make sure you let me know. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.